Bon matin à tous. And that's about it for my French. I'm sorry. Thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to be back in Metz. I've been here many times over the years. I come to Alsace, I come to Lorraine every year. I hope I'll be back again in February of 2020. But what I want to talk about today are not just our predictions for 2019. I'm going to be giving you some sneak peeks, prévus, of our predictions for 2020. The theme that the organizers suggested is, if I were the CEO, the head of IT of a company, a technology company, a telecommunications company, or a company in any industry, what would I want to invest in right now for today, for tomorrow, for 5 years out? I want to start off by looking at that topic that in technology I always get asked. Duncan, what's the next big thing? Le prochain grand truc, oui? No, that doesn't really work. I want to start off, as I always do, by looking at the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner has been publishing this annually since 1995. They say innovation begins with a trigger, rises to a peak of inflated expectations before plunging down into, in English, the trough of disillusionment. It sounds so much better en français. Le creux de désenchantement. Isn't that wonderful? I love that. I want to open up a restaurant called Le Creux de Désenchantement and see how it does in English. Not very well. Then you go up the slope of enlightenment, plateau of productivity, and what I'd like everybody to notice quickly is the right-hand side of the chart. There are no circles. We can even look at the timing. This is from 2018. You can even look at the timing. Orange triangles are more than 10 years away. Dark blue circles are 5 to 10. Light blue circles 2 to 5. But the technologies that are going to break through within the next 24 months, those are the white circles. Those are the important ones. I want everybody to look at all the white circles on this chart. Okay, well, that's last year. Is there a new version of the Gartner hype cycle? I'm so glad you asked. This came out last month. They've changed the colors, but the same basic concept. First of all, notice that there's still nothing on the right-hand side of the slide. And the next thing I'd like you to notice is they've changed the legend, but the ones that we want to focus on are yellow circles with white inside. Once again, there are no yellow circles with white inside. In the history, 24 years now, of doing the hype cycle, there are 3 years in which Gartner has said there are no technologies that are imminent within the next 24 months. Those years are 2017, 2018, and 2019. Gartner is saying the technology world of 2029 is going to be astonishing. But the technology world of 2021 is going to look a lot like today. Gartner is saying for the last 3 years that we are in a period of less profound change in new technologies. Is there any data to support that? Yes, looking around the world, global sales of hardware have been declining every single year since 2013. If people around the world are spending less money on hardware, and they are, that means they can spend more money on software, content, services. Around the world, people are keeping their old iPhones more years, but watching more Netflix and using more data. This is a global trend. It is a profound multi-tens of billions of dollars shift away from hardware towards software, services, and content. You can see this in the stock market. Go out there and look at the price of your favorite hardware company and see that it's trading at 12 times earnings. Go out there and look at the price of Netflix, which is trading at hundreds of times earnings, or software companies, which are trading in some cases at thousands times earnings. There is a shift not just of spending, but of dollars, of value, of capitalization. Within that hardware, that shrinking hardware world, what do we see? Well, most of it's smartphone sales. Smartphones, absolutely the biggest part of it. Next biggest is computers. They are not going away. I'll talk more about that in a second. After that, TV sets. People still have TV sets. Oh, they're not always watching traditional broadcast television. They may be out there playing games on it, watching YouTube, watching Netflix, but the TV sets are still selling. Why am I showing you this chart? Because people around the world ask me the question, Duncan, my company wants to reach new consumers. We want to show them ads, we want to sell them things, we want to offer them products, we want to offer them services. Which devices should we focus on? Should it be VR goggles? No, by the way. Should it be smart watches? Should it be smart speakers? And I will tell everybody here today what I tell everybody in Japan and Singapore and Morocco and the US. Focus on smartphones. Focus on computers. Focus on TV. Nothing else matters. Everything else is rounding error. If you look, I'll play a game. I'll play a game right now. Right now, here in the room. I can see you moderately well. Who here in the room does not have a smartphone? Oh, gosh, there's one person. Send him out, send him out. Who here does not have a computer or access to a computer? I'm not seeing any hands. Who here doesn't have a television set? There's a few of us. Around the world, in North America, in Asia, in Europe, in France, 90-some% of people have smartphones, 90-some% of people have computers, 90-some% of people have television sets, and they use them for a combined 9.5 hours per day. Why does nothing else matter? Because nobody's got any time. Focus where the eyeballs are. One quick point. I've got lots of other stuff I want to talk about, but I wanted to kind of hit this one. This is Canadian data. I don't happen to have current data from France. I have it from 2 years ago, but I wanted to show you the 2018 data. This is just a chart showing what everybody's favorite device in Canada happens to be. As you can see, some people still use television sets. Lots of people still watch TV on TV because it's got a big screen and good sound, and you can do it with your family and your friends. Computers hanging in there. Smartphone is growing, especially with young people. None of this will surprise you. The one thing, though, that might surprise you is look at that 18 to 24-year-old browse shopping websites and then make purchases. Computer, not smartphone. Odd. Why not? So I do focus groups, and I've done them in the Nordics, I've done them in Ireland, I've done them in Canada, and I've done them in France. So I asked a lot of French Génération Y, French young people, how do you shop for shoes? Well, I do it online. Okay, great. Which device do you use, your smartphone or your computer? Well, both. It depends where I am. Okay, fair enough. Which one do you use more? Oh, my computer. Why? Is it because there's a better processor on your computer? No, they look at me. Is it because your computer has a better connection to the internet? No. Well, why do you do it? And they look at me like I'm an idiot. And they stare at me and they go, I buy shoes, especially more expensive shoes, on my computer because it's got a bigger screen and I can see the shoes better. See, this is what you're paying for. This is deep, profound research over here. I'm kidding a bit, but not really. Some of the stuff that people do now and next year and in the future is driven by form factor. And as much as I love my smartphone, I am not going to do things like play TV, video games, Netflix, shop, complicated documents. I am never going to type a 2,000-word document on a smartphone. Keyboards matter, mice matter, and big screen matters. Do not expect the computer to go away. I'm going to start off by talking about 5G, 5G. 5G is coming slowly around the world. It's already available in the UK, the US, China, Korea. Not in France or Canada yet, but it's coming. What do we look for this year in 5G phones? Surprisingly few. Although about 1.5 billion phones around the world are going to sell, the number of 5G phones this year is going to be less than 10 million. Why? They're expensive. They cost $300 or $400 more. They have terrible battery life. Who here has an iPhone? Bad news, no 5G iPhone till next year, so that's not helping. Coverage is bad. It doesn't work country to country, but at the end of the day, why are people not rushing out and spending $400 more for the latest, greatest 5G phone? Because nobody needs one. Right now, here in France, run a speed test on your phone, run a speed test on LTE network, not inside, it's not great inside. Run a speed test and you'll probably get 30, 40, 50 megabits per second. But 5G is much better, you can get a gigabit per second. There is no application in the world that requires a gig to a handset. And I'll tell you right now, there never will. There is no amount of information you can display on a 6-inch screen that requires a gigabit per second. It's just not possible. Never mind 4K or 8K or 16K or 30. I can give you 32K, which doesn't even exist, at 120 frames a second, and I need about 100 meg. People will not be rushing out and buying 5G phones because people don't need 5G on the handset. So 5G is useless. 5G is pointless. There are no applications for, yes there are. I may not need a gig to my phone, but I might need a gig to my home. Fixed wireless access. Not if you have fiber. If you have fiber, you don't need this. But for the billions of homes around the world who do not yet have fiber, and fiber costs $2,000 per home to connect, I can deliver, using 5G wireless technology, gigabit speeds to your home, not for $2,000 per home connected, but $200. What does it take? You stick an antenna on the outside of the house and point it at a base station. What else does it take? Absolutely nothing. The use of fixed wireless access around the world will be, in my view, the single most transformational aspect of 5G for the consumer. There are enterprise applications that are interesting, and I'll talk about those a little later. But I want to touch on this because this is a big deal. If you don't have fiber now, you're about to start getting high speeds around the world much sooner. 5G rollout's going to take years. This slide is not even mine. It's from the GSMA. They're predicting that by 2025, still 6 years away, 15% of the world will be on 5G. Oh, that's amazing. That means that 85 won't. This will take a decade. So, for everybody here at the consumer level and the handset level, when should you start worrying about 5G? 3-4 years from now. It's not short term. It's not a big thing. However, there is an interesting subset that's not about the consumer. It's about the enterprise. 5G privé, I guess. Private 5G. You don't go on the network operator's cellular site. Instead, you buy equipment from Nokia, Ericsson, Huawei, ZTE. You buy your own equipment, you set it up inside your port, your plant, your warehouse, and you have your own private network. You get spectrum, you buy it, you lease it, maybe the government gives it to you. This private 5G is very small this year, $300 or $400 million in 2020, next year. But long term, this will be a multi-billion-dollar industry. Here's a nice example of it. When we look at this, a container port is a nightmare. You have to track every single person, every single forklift. You have to control access. There's secure and private data, and then you have to track every single one of those stupid metal containers and find out what temperature they are, if they've moved, if anybody's opened them, if anybody has taken anything out, which is bad, or put anything in, which could be worse. All in real time and all with giant chunks of metal all over the place. This is a wireless nightmare in 4G, and in 5G, it works like a charm. Picture all the different things that you could do with a private 5G network. That's one of our 2020 predictions. That'll be launched on December 10th, but I hope you don't mind me sharing with you. Shifting gears, I want to move away from 5G and talk for a second or two about AI and machine learning. When I use the term AI, artificial intelligence, I am not talking about computers that are smarter than human beings. That may happen one day, but it is decades away. Instead, I'm talking about machine learning, which is a relatively new tool for pattern detection. You have a bunch of software, you have a bunch of data, you train the data, you produce an algorithm, and then you do inference so that you can look at new data and say, this is this pattern, that is a dog, this is a human voice, so forth. Historically, before 2009, this didn't work. There were no chips that were good at doing machine learning. In 2009, we started using, are there any gamers in the room? GPUs. High-end GPUs, $1,000 chips that were good for gaming turned out, who knew, to be brilliant at accelerating machine learning. They were 10 or 100 or 1,000 times better than central processors. This created, essentially, the modern machine learning industry. It had grown to, by 2018 or so, about $10 billion a year in chips, all in the data center. What did these look like? Well, I'll talk about that in a second. How are enterprises accessing the power of machine learning or AI? There are 4 approaches to it. The easiest approach is to do it through your enterprise software. You have enterprise software out there, and then they add a new module that has AI inside, and you start... Does anybody here use Tableau? Any Tableau users in the room? Sorry, have all of your arms stopped working? I actually don't believe this. Nobody here uses Tableau? Weird. Okay. Didn't know that. Anyway, Tableau is this data visualization tool. Used to be you had to be a professional Tableau user to use Tableau. Not anymore. They've added an AI module that does natural language processing. So all you do is you type in. You could be anybody at the company, including the CEO, and type in a query. What are my sales by left-handed, blue-eyed, bald people on alternate Thursdays? And it will give you that data. There's no programming involved. There's no weird language. You just type it in normal words. According to a Deloitte survey we did last year, 87% of large companies around the world are going to be accessing the power of AI through enterprise software. Now, there's a thing I want to tell you right now. It's not even my prediction. I'm stealing it from somebody else. I was reading a Wall Street research report. There's a bunch of software companies out there. AI software companies. They're worth a lot of money because they're in AI. It's a big premium for AI software companies. And this Wall Street analyst made a prediction that in 2021, there won't be any AI software companies anymore. Why? Because every software company will use AI. So that's sort of level 1. It's pretty easy. You buy your software from Salesforce or Microsoft or Tableau or whoever you want, and it's got AI inside. You don't have any You don't have to write any software. You don't need any data scientists. You don't own any hardware. That's pretty easy. Level 2 is the next one. 80% of our clients will be doing this. In this one, you need 1 or 2 data scientists. No hardware. And what you do is you have your own data. You could be a big company. You could be a medium company. You could even be pretty small. And all you do is you take your data, you clean it up a bit, and you send it off to Microsoft, Amazon, or Google, and they do that machine learning training for you in the cloud. Right? You don't need any hardware. You don't need a massive investment. For a couple of $100, they'll do machine learning for you. I call this, the democratization of AI. Up until now, AI has always been about people with giant teams of data scientists and engineers and hardware and software. And going forward, you don't need that. So that's level 1. That's level 2. Here's level 3. Level 3 is when you have enough need. Now, this is going to be bigger companies. This used to only be companies with $100 billion or $10 billion of sales, and then it was companies with $1 billion of sales, and now it's companies with tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. What you do is you've got now maybe 10 data scientists, maybe 20, and you have an ongoing need to do machine learning, and you go out and you buy an AI appliance. It doesn't have to be this one. This is just an example. But this costs about $150,000, and you can see, and it's big and it's heavy and all that kind of stuff. And you buy it and you keep it in your own office, in your wiring closet. You have your own AI appliance for handling your needs. You're probably also using the cloud, but at least for some of your demand, you have it in-house. Before I go any further and talk about level 4, let's discuss how important this is. 38% of Deloitte clients say that machine learning will be critically important within 2 years. 43% say it will be very important. And 19% of Deloitte clients are exactly like that boss you had in 2000 who said, "I don't need to learn how to use email." You're too young. You didn't even have a boss like that. Maybe your grandparents. In my view, AI and machine learning is the most important trend, and companies that do not do well at AI will no longer be successful companies. Moving ahead, here's a fun one. I'm not sure if anybody in this room is old enough. Has anybody here ever built their own computer? Why did you build your own computer rather than just buy one on the store? To learn. Yeah, that's true too. That's fun too. Anybody else? Cheaper. I love cheaper. Anything else? Because it's better than what you go out and you build your own, because it's cheaper than what you can buy, and it's better than what you can buy, and it's customized for your needs. This is a thing. Some of them are big companies and some are smaller, but what we're seeing is a number of companies go out and build their own AI appliance. They need their own hardware engineers, and they are building their own device. Now, I was looking the other day at the latest rack for a data center. This is from NVIDIA. For $5 million, I think that was the price, you get this thing, and it weighs 250 kilograms. It produces 10,000 watts of heat, and that's really great. But does anybody here, I got to tell this story, does anybody here have a Roomba or one of those vacuum cleaners that, you know, the little baby ones that drives around the floor cleaning your house automatically? You've heard of them, right? Okay. Did you ever read the story of the guy who had a Roomba and he had a dog and the dog wasn't well? No? Okay, so this is kind of early in the morning for this, sorry, but this is the thing. So the guy had a dog, and the dog went to the bathroom in his house, and it was not a happy dog, it was a very sick dog. So it wasn't a normal pile of dog leftovers, it was like liquid. Yeah, sorry, but this gets important. What did the Roomba do when it saw the liquid? It drove over it, and it covered his entire house. Ew, I know, sorry. My point is, wouldn't it be cool if I could make a Roomba that was smart enough to go, whoa, stop, shut off, call mom or dad and get them to come and clean up the mess? Yeah. How would you do that? AI, machine learning. So I'm going to, on a $200 vacuum cleaner, put a $5 million, 500-pound, 10,000... It doesn't work. All the stuff that we've been doing with machine learning so far has been the old mainframe model. We've been putting the intelligence at the core of the network, and the devices at the edge were like old IBM green screen dumb terminals. Up until now. We now have a number of devices where I can actually locate the machine learning on the edge device. And these don't cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and they don't take up massive amounts of room. They fit on USB sticks, they cost a few dollars in volume, and they consume watts or milliwatts of power. Edge machine learning will be the next big trend. Well, it's a small trend, I suppose. This is new. Nobody else in the world has seen this. This is brand new research. In 2020, the bulk of the edge machine learning chips that we're seeing are found on our smartphones, tablets, speakers, and wearables. Those are the chips from the Apple Bionic and the Qualcomm chips. But going forward, by 2024, you can see there's this tremendous growth in what we call the enterprise edge. What is the enterprise edge? It's smart vacuum cleaners, but it's also smart robots in factories, smart wind turbines that detect and predict their own failure, robots, cameras, all that. Maybe we can touch more on this in the Q&A, which I'm leaving time for, don't worry. What does it all look like? There's a mix of devices. You can see on the right, you've got the cloud AI, you've got the enterprise core, that's the appliance. Consumer edge, largely on phones and devices like that. But then there's the enterprise edge, robots, agriculture, factories. I want to spend a second talking about smart speakers, because this is a prediction that we got badly wrong. Last December, we came out and we said there will be 67% growth and 163 million smart speakers sold this year. A lot of other people were saying it was going to be 200 or 250 or 300 million. We were wrong. Smart speaker sales are actually down year over year. Why? Does anybody here have a smart speaker? What do you do with it around the world? Play music, do weather updates, alarms, search for general information, also known as news. And I was thinking to myself, I was born in 1964, which means that I was a kid in 1975, 11 years old. And I was thinking to myself, because I bought a smart speaker last year, which I gave away because I don't like it, but I was thinking, man, if only in 1975... Do you know how much better my life would have been if I had had a magic device that combined music, news, weather, and alarms? Man, that would have just made my life so much better. At the end of the day, smart speakers are not growing that fast because people are using them like clock radios. Could they use them for home automation? Yes. But they don't. That's actually the thing that the fewest people do. Could they use them for shopping? They could, but they don't. Despite the fact that the world's #1 smart speaker brand is from Amazon, people lose it for listening to music, not buying stuff from Amazon. Quickly, I'm just going to go through this one because we're getting close to the Q&A portion. I wanted to throw this one up here because a lot of people are asking me questions about podcasting. Is podcasting growing? Absolutely, about 30% year over year. Is it a $1 billion market? Just barely. But when I compare it to other things out there that consumers are using, when I look at advertising, when I look at media markets, podcasting is there, but not by much. So cautious on podcasting in the context of other media. I want to close off by talking about robots. I don't have a laser on this, but I think you can see. See the thing on the left there, the orange arm? That's what's called an industrial robot. And there are hundreds of thousands of those that sell per year. But the stuff that's low down, see the little ones on the wheels? Those are battery powered. Those are, they have AI chips on the edge on them increasingly. And they move around warehouses now. And it used to be that they'd only go in certain paths. You had to sort of put wires under the floor or paint yellow lines, and they would only go there. No, they're now going everywhere. They pick up packages, and they move them from here to there to there to there, working with other robots and human beings. These are called professional service robots, not industrial service robots. They're little carts, little caddies. What does the market look like? So the green chart's the total, but the ones I want you to focus on are the blue and the red. The blue chart is the industrial robot. That's the robot arms. It was doing really well in 2017, but 18, 19, 20, very, sort of 3-4% growth over that 3-year period. Nice space, but not a particularly important or attractive one in terms of growth. What I find much more interesting is the red bar. That's the number of service robots, those little ones on wheels, either powered by edge AI or industrial 5G. See how it's all coming together? You can have your edge AI chip, or you can have your 5G, or you can have both. And what does it enable? It enables stuff like this. What's the growth rate there? 109%, not bad. 51%, pretty good. 40, 30. 300,000 of them selling in 2020. And by 2022, the number of professional service robots selling will actually be bigger than the number of industrial robots. So this is you can look at 2016. Look at 2016. 300,000 of the arms, and then of the little wheeled things, only about 50,000. And within 7 years, they're actually going to get bigger. So pay attention. Rise of the robots, I call this. This is me. I always put a slide like this up so that people can contact me if they want. Please do connect on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. Instagram is largely going to be pictures. I have a new puppy. I have a Bouvier Bernois that I'm picking up in 2 weeks. So if you want to see a lot of pictures of a really cute puppy, you can follow me on Instagram. That's what it's going to mainly be for now. We have some time for questions. Can we have the house lights up so that I can actually see people in the audience? That didn't work very well. Okay, can people just stick up their hands? Yes, sir. Do we have microphones? I'll just run over. There we go.
Thank you. You didn't talk about 3D printing or VR. Could these be trends for the next years?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your question. So I'm going to start off with VR. VR, AR, and MR, mixed reality, are the most overhyped technologies you will see in your life. Around the world, this industry, which was supposed to be $25 billion a year by now, is less than $1 billion. Why? Consumers will not sit in their living rooms looking like Jacques Cousteau. They won't. They just won't. They won't wear, forgive me, they won't wear stuff on their face. Never have, never will. Enterprise VR, maybe it's bigger. Military, yes. Military loves this stuff. They've bought millions of them for training. Why? Because it's an awful lot better to pretend to shoot your friend than to actually shoot your friend, right? So don't kill each other. So VR, AR, MR works great in military simulations. Enterprise. There have been a few pilots, this warehouse here, that factory there. By my estimation, enterprise, VR, AR, and MR sales combined this year were less than $100 million worldwide. Why? Because content is expensive to create, because most people, even at work, don't like wearing stuff on their face. And has anybody here ever worked as an electrical utility person? No? You need a pair of rubber-soled shoes so you don't get electrocuted. You need a pair of pliers, and everybody has one of those. You need a hat. Everybody's got one of those. Gloves. Everybody's got one of those. An ammeter, little thing on your hip, costs about $50 to see if the current is there and stuff like that. Everybody's got one of those. The $10,000 headsets, they've got one back at the office. And if you need it for that job, you use it, and it's great. But 99% of the time you don't need it, which means that the sales of VR devices, or AR or MR, are really low. 3D printers, much better than they used to be. Growing industry, about 15% growth this year. Why? They make more things, bigger volumes, faster, cheaper, more materials, all great. But still, at the end of the day, where are we here? There's some screws in here that attach the chair. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 screws per chair. 1,000 chairs more upstairs. If I want to make 2,000 screws for this auditorium, never mind all the other auditoriums in the world, I'm not going to 3D print them because it's slow and it's expensive to print 2,000 screws. I'm going to go to a factory where they make them the old-fashioned way and just do it that way. 99% of the parts in the world are made with traditional manufacturing. 0.9% of the parts in the world are made using something called CNC machines, computer numerical controlled machines. Those are a little bit slower and more expensive than traditional casting or molding or whatever, but it's a legit business. And 0.1% of the parts in the world are made with 3D printing. Next question. I'm getting my workout.
Hey Duncan, how are you doing? Do you see any diverging trends among consumers, comparable consumers in various areas of the world? For example, say US versus Europe versus developed areas in Asia?
Around which technologies, or just high level, all of them? Yeah, there's some good ones out there. Fairly obviously, consumers, for example, in Europe, are much more aware of privacy. Not so much security, but privacy, and also the tendency of large, usually US-based companies to monetize all their personal data. Like, that's a thing in Europe. In the States, not so much of a big concern. In China, not so much of a big concern. Of course the state does that. That's what they do. You know, it's just not a factor. More on the device side. So do you remember the chart I showed you with all the little squares in blue and green for TV and mobile? In Canada, we love our computers and phones are second. In Sweden, they love their phones and computers are second, but it's a balance. 51-49 in Canada, 51-49 the other way in Sweden. Go to Taiwan. It is a wall of smartphones. They don't have TVs. They just don't. They watch TV on their phones. They have some computers, but it's not their favorite device. Is Taiwan a leading indicator for France? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think it's more cultural thing. Here in France, you have, I know your apartments aren't large here, especially in Paris, but they're bigger than Taipei. I know the metro is crowded in Paris, and I haven't been on the transit here, but I've been on the metro in Toulouse and Lille and so forth. And in the morning, it's very crowded. Not compared to Taiwan. Like just really jammed in, right? And so you can watch your TV show on your smartphone like this. I think that some of that is regional specific. I would expect to that. One of the other things that's going on, does anybody here ride a bicycle to work or school? Okay. Does anybody here have an electric bicycle? Aha. This is one of our other predictions. When we look at all the electric vehicles in the world today, all the electric bikes, all the electric cars, all the electric trucks, all the electric buses, 95% in 2020 of all the electric vehicles in the world will have 2 wheels, not 4. Very, very, very few people have plug-in electric vehicles around the world. It's 3 or 4 million. There are over 100 million electric bicycles. And every single one of those is saving just as much carbon as an electric car. Because if I can pull somebody out of their car onto an e-bike, hills get flat, you don't need a shower when you get to work, and if you've got bad knees, you're on a bike and not in a car. Electric bikes are saving the world. Why am I telling you this? Because 40 million electric bikes will sell this year, 30 million in China. You want to talk about regional? Netherlands. In the Netherlands, more than half of all the bikes that sell are now electric.